You know, the sad thing is, I used to really like Booker T. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with another edition of Off the Cuff, and today I'm going to talk about the Corey Graves Booker T situation, or more or less the Booker T running off at his mouth situation, and Corey Graves just dodging it like a fucking boss. Before we go into what's actually happened over the course of the past week or so, I just want to tell you guys, I was a fan of Booker T. You guys know I wasn't really much of a fan of WCW at the time, but when he came to WWE, he played the underdog. Yeah, he was a little bit of Rock 2.0. He had the bookend, which was a ripoff of the Rock Bottom, let's be real for a second. But it was all good, and I remember his feud with Triple H over the title at WrestleMania, when Triple H started bringing up stuff from his criminal past and talking about how somebody like you should never be champion. Now, obviously, if you follow the storyline, he's specifically talking about people with a criminal past, a questionable past, people that have broken the law, etc. But even back then, the social justice warriors were like, no, he's saying that he shouldn't be champion because he's black. Now, go on from there, we escaped that for the most part. He went on to do a bunch of cool things. He went on to have the King's Court. He went on, who was that with, like Regal and Finlay and Queen Sharmell. He went on to become King of the Ring, become King Booker when he became the world champion. It was a dumb idea, but when they had the triple threat to crown the Champion of Champions championship. And I mean, Booker T remains a voice, to this day in WWE, and up until a couple weeks ago, one of the main voices on the main show, the crown jewel, the flagship show of Monday Night Raw. I liked Booker T. I liked him as a wrestler. He wasn't my favorite, but he was there, he had some good shit, and it was all good. His stuff with The Rock, some of his comedy stuff with Goldust was great. I liked him. Now, transition him to the commentary role. They did one of the drafts, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, and one of the things that they did was they drafted David Otunga onto commentary, and regardless of what anybody says, we all collectively groaned because David Otunga is about as exciting as watching gray paint dry. Immediately the next week, seemingly WWE saw their mistake and said, well, David Otunga's off on assignment, Booker T's going to fill in for him this week. And then the next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. It was a running joke for a little while, and then we just realized David Otunga was nowhere to be found other than on the pay-per-view preview panels and such, and I don't really know what else he does. He's married to Jennifer What's-Her-Face, so David Otunga, you know, take his Harvard Law degree, stick it up his ass, and don't let the doorknob hit you in that ass on the way out the door. But, I mean, everybody shat on Booker T when he was on commentary because he didn't make any sense. I didn't. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. I tried, kind of like JBL would make some obnoxious comments on SmackDown to counterbalance the actual commentators, one of whom being Corey Graves. I liked it. I would never say it was good, but it was entertaining, and if nothing else, for him to go out there and spew out some nonsense and then be put in his place, or have Corey Graves or even Michael Cole look at him and like sort of with that, what the fuck are you talking about type of thing. I mean, Michael Cole and Corey Graves both have been interviewed as saying, you know, sometimes we couldn't even respond to Booker because we really didn't know what he was on about. But if you want to look at it in sort of a proactive lens, his commentary style, even though it didn't make any sense, was entertaining. He had a lot of energy, even if the energy didn't have a particular direction, and I didn't mind it. I sort of stood up and said, yeah, you know, it's not that bad, when people started shitting on it with pretty legitimate reasons why it should be shit on. But the announcement came down. The announcement came down after the Royal Rumble that Jonathan Coachman had not only returned to the WWE, but would be replacing Booker T on commentary. Now, he was with ESPN for a little bit. Now, you guys know I don't watch any outside sports. I never really saw Coach on ESPN other than when he was interviewing WWE talent. So I don't know what the story is, what went down between him and ESPN, what caused them to part ways, what caused them to seemingly part ways with WWE for a little bit. But the coach is back on Raw, which meant that Booker T was off. Now, there was a lot of laughing about this, there was a lot of outrage about this. The people that were like, well, he was a goofball, so let's try something else. Those people have some legitimacy, and the people that were fans of him that said, oh my god, what the hell, how do you do that to a legend? I mean, you're stretching the definition there a little bit. But I mean, if you're a really, really big fan of Booker T, I could see why you were upset that you're not going to see him on commentary anymore. Me, I fell somewhere in the middle, where it was like, Booker T was fun, but he definitely wasn't adding or really taking away from the show. So Coach coming back in, and Coach who's had some legitimate news desk experience now and sort of projects himself, he's still the same dick that he was when he was in WWE back in the day, but now with some credibility behind him, that arrogance has some potency on the commentary table. And I mean, it's only been 2 weeks, but it's pretty damn good. Now, this brings a slightly separate issue where WWE does not need a three-man booth. The Coach Booker T swap should never be an issue, should never have been an issue, because you don't need that third guy on the commentary table. In my personal opinion, and I know it's an opinion that a lot of people hold, 2 people on commentary can have a conversation. 3 people on commentary is 2 people having a conversation with somebody else trying to jump in. And I'm sorry, you're going to tell me that they all have one thing in common. I know what people are going to say, and I'm going to tell you all to fuck off in advance. Nigel McGuinness and Mauro Ranallo do not need Percy Watson. Tom Phillips, the face that face fucks the place, Corey Graves, do not need Byron Saxton. Michael Cole and Corey Graves don't need Booker T or the Coach. Let's be fucking real for a second. But they are there, and Coach was an interesting swap out, and especially if you look at it from a WWE business perspective, you got an outsider like the Coach, who is now an outsider, bringing a little bit of that legit cred to the commentary table. Much like Mauro Ranallo, before the interactions between him and JBL on SmackDown, brought some legitimate combat sport credibility to the SmackDown announce table, much like, I don't know who else. It's an odd comparison, but if you can imagine that WWE created The Rock as a wrestler, as a wrestling character, as a wrestling persona. The Rock then went out and made his own name in Hollywood. Now when he comes back to the WWE, he brings the Hollywood eye with him. The Coach, I believe, was sort of groomed and created in WWE, left WWE, went and had whatever career he had over in ESPN, soaked up some of that legitimacy and brought it back to the company. So I guess, if I want to make a really outlandish statement, the Coach and Mauro Ranallo and people of those regards are the Rock of commentary. Now that is something that you can't ignore. That's something that Booker T can't compete with. Now, well, Booker T is a big name, or kind of a big name in the industry. Who is Booker T to somebody who's not a wrestling fan? And from WWE's point of view, you have to look at that. I'm sorry to burst our bubbles. There are people out there that don't give a fuck about wrestling, and those are the ones that Vince is chasing. So from that perspective, I know why they did it. But again, I come back to the whole, we don't need a three-man booth anyway. Corey Graves, Michael Cole. Corey Graves, Tom Phillips, Nigel McGuinness, Mauro Ranallo, Nigel McGuinness, and Vic Joseph on 205 Live are a great team. And I don't really have anything positive or negative to say about Vic Joseph just yet. But watching, one of the things about me now reviewing 205 Live is I watch 205 Live, it's got the two-man booth, and it's so fucking refreshing. It doesn't matter, like, okay, I won't say it doesn't matter, but you could have a good match or a bad match. If you put a three-man team or a two-man team on that match, it's going to change the match and how you perceive it at home on your television. Now, Booker T is not fired from the company. He hasn't lost his job. He hasn't lost his spot. He still has, I guess, what they call a Legends contract in the WWE. He's going to be participating in their multimedia. He's going to be doing their pre-shows, their panels, their special events, all that sort of thing, which is great because I liked, for the very, very brief time that they did, when they did the pre-shows for Raw and SmackDown on the WWE Network, they weren't stellar productions, but they were exactly what they were supposed to be. It was about 20 minutes leading up into the show, 20, 30, 40, sometimes over an hour leading up into a pre-show. Now, if you consider that for a second, now, the commentators may get 10, 15 minutes total actual on-camera exposure as commentators on Raw, because the focus is what's going on in the ring. On a pre-show, on a debate platform, whatever, you are temporarily the focus. You are not, you know, background noise while something else is happening. All the focus is on you and whatever the hell you're talking about. So if Booker T has such a thirst for the limelight, he should love the pre-shows and and the panels and the discussions and all that sort of thing. Plus, you know, I think he's going to be doing a show. I think they said he's going to be doing a show similar to what JBL did with the Legends show. We're going to be comparing him to JBL a couple of times in this video. I'm just putting that out there. But so if he's got that thirst for the limelight, he's going to be getting it more so. He's going to be actually on camera more than he would be as a Raw commentator, and he's got nothing but sour grapes. Now, if you told me that Booker T was upset that Coachman came back. Coachman, you know, was the prodigal son of WWE. He went off somewhere else. Whatever happened, it fell apart. He came back and took Booker's spot. If you told me that Booker T was envious or had some sort of ill will towards Jonathan Coachman, I would still roll my eyes and tell him that he's a retard, but it would be relevant. There would be some sympathy behind it. But there's no sympathy with this because Booker T blames, of all people, Corey Graves. Now, Booker T has a radio show. Booker T has a lot of irons in the fire. He's going to be on these pre-shows, these panels. He's going to be creating this network content. He's got his own school that he's never shy about bragging about, and he's got his radio morning show. His radio morning show where he decided to go on live on the airwaves and trash and threaten and begrudge the name of Corey Graves, who, since he still works for WWE, is his co-worker at the end of the day and a main voice on the main brand of the company that he still works for, which is a brilliant move. So what I've done here, you guys know I'm giving sort of off-the-cuff thoughts here. What I have written here is not a whole lot of expounding bullshit. There's a couple of quotes that I want to sort of lump together. I just want to respond to some of them because some of them have sort of really troubling implications, if I can say that. Now, these quotes are not necessarily in order, so what I'm going to do in the description of this video, I'm going to try and remember. I've got a link to a sound clip of this portion of Booker T's show, and I've got a link to a NoDQ article that actually has most of these quotes and what he said and where he said it and the context of how he said it in written form as well. So if I remember, I will put that in the description box of this video if you guys want to get a better idea for the flow, because I'm not going to be able to be fair, I'm not going to be able to give you guys the flow of what he was saying, because it does kind of ramble a little bit. But if you want to hear it like from the horse's mouth, as the expression goes, I will try to remember to put those links down in the box below. If I don't remember to do that, somebody in the comment section, please hit me up and remind me, and I will get that added as soon as possible. Now, first of all, I don't know who his co-host is on his show. I don't listen to his show. Like I said, I think I listened to his show once when he was interviewing Randy Orton, and both of them just felt like they were patting themselves on the back for an hour. So I thought, no, this isn't for me. And that's coming from somebody who listens to the Taz Show podcast. So how bad is that? But he starts off his little diatribe mocking Corey Graves' vocabulary. I don't have a vocabulary like Corey Graves. I don't even have an education like Corey Graves. I don't talk like that. I don't say that. I don't play around with those types of vernaculars and all this. And he sort of basically mocks him for having a vocabulary, mocks him for being educated, etc. And he's like, well, that's not how I came up. Now, there's one of two things that he's going for here, and both of them are kind of a virtue signaling kind of thing. Either he's saying that Corey Graves is more privileged than him and had more opportunities than him, gee, I wonder why, or he's really into his own character and he thinks that a comment like that is going to give him some kind of street cred. Both of those, and I say street cred in tight air quotes, I know my hands are sort of off the frame, street cred in tight air quotes, if you will, with as much sarcasm as I can muster. If he's trying to go for the privilege thing, then he's just, you know, he's hiding behind a hot button, which is fucking pathetic. Or if he's trying to give himself street cred, that means he is a mark for himself. Oh, yes. Now, there's a couple of different quotes here that I'm going to read out to you in order, and then I'm going to tell you what I think of them. He makes the statement point blank, Corey Graves is why I'm not on Raw. Well, no, you're not on Raw because WWE got their hands on Jonathan Coachman. That's the end of that one. He starts talking about how Corey Graves has been driving him crazy for months. They had to take me off Raw because everybody in the back knew I was going to do something to him. because I'm a big bad guy, and you know, I'm a big threat to Corey Graves, and everybody that I work with knows my big bad reputation, which is just kind of made me sad. He went on to talk about how many people came to him saying, hey, we're going to take you away from Corey Graves because we know that you can beat him down. He's putting very complimentary words about himself in somebody else's mouth, which is just pathetic. Let's be real for a second. So he's trying to imply one of a couple of things here. He's trying to imply that the other backstage personalities of WWE are contributing to that, again, that street cred that, you know, he walks around and everybody kisses the feet, or sorry, kisses the marks that his feet leave on the ground because he's such a tough guy and he can fuck so many people up. Or, I don't know if he realizes this, but he's implying that Corey Graves has a lot of ability in the WWE. Now, if you got a conflict between two guys in the WWE, and you have to get rid of one of them, if this is true, if what Booker T is implying is actually true, they would have sided with him. He's their Hall of Famer, he's their superstar, he's their former champion, da-da-da-da. What reason do they have to favor Corey Graves over Booker T? Corey Graves has only been commentating for like 2 years. Now, that being said, Booker T does commentary on one show. Corey Graves, after what happened to him physically in NXT, went on to become one of the voices of NXT, became far too valuable to keep in NXT, and moved himself up to Monday Night Raw. He's commentated 205 Live. He's commentated SmackDown. He still commentates both main roster shows. Now, why would they snub a legend, a Hall of Famer, a former multi-time champion of champions like Booker T in favor of this guy who's been commentating for a little bit and only had a little bit of a career in NXT? You know, the good old boys club still exists. Booker T's been a lifer in the wrestling industry. He was a lifer in WCW and made himself a lifer name in WWE. If this was just a popularity contest, Booker T would have won by a country mile, but he didn't. So obviously, he was in the wrong. Second of all, if you look at the two talents, you got one guy on one show that they got rid of. You got another guy that they kept on to do 2 or 3, you know, 2, 3, 4 other shows. As I say, I go down the Rolodex once again. He became one of the voices on NXT. He is one of the voices on Raw. He is one of the voices on SmackDown. He did commentary on 205 Live for a small bit before Nigel McGuinness took over, and good for Nigel McGuinness. He's had, I think, 3 different shows he had something similar to Uncensored on there. He had his tattoo show where he was interviewing guys like AJ Styles and Baron Corbin and Seth Rollins, etc. And now he's got the Straight to the Source, where he's interviewing people like Roman Reigns, and the most recent interview that he did with Enzo Amore, my boy, which I'm pretty sure they took off the network, but whatever. So all the cards should have been in Booker T's favor. If you got all these cards stacked in your favor and you're still the one that lost your spot, maybe it's about time you looked at your damn self. Oh yes. And then he just goes on to straight physical threats of violence over a media, over a live media like radio. Not saying that very many people listen to his show, but you've got a live mic, live media. You're throwing physical death threats, or not death threats, I shouldn't say. Sorry, I've got to be careful I don't misspeak. But you're lobbing threats of violence over the radio to an audience of, I don't know, a couple hundred people that maybe actually give a shit, and you think that this isn't going to backlash on you and your WWE career? He throws out so many cliches too. He's trying to be so tough, and he's trying to talk about what he's actually going to do to Corey Graves. But at the same time, he sounds like he's still, like I say, marking out for himself, cutting a promo almost. I'm a nice guy until you get on my bad side. And I'm not saying Corey Graves is on my bad side yet, but he's on his way there. I'm not mean until somebody messes with my green. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm going to beat him like he stole something. I'm going to beat him until he begs me not to beat him anymore. But I'm going to be careful. I'm going to do it smart, and I'm going to do it away from the bosses. I'm going to do it away from the arenas. I'm going to do it away from the airports. But then he starts talking about specific spots where he might lie in wait for Corey Graves, and he mentions the coffee shop and the hairdresser and the tattoo bar. All along the way, making fun of him for having tattoos, which is funny because he has tattoos as well. We just don't see them. making fun of him for the hair. You know, he's got... Corey Graves has a very unique image. It makes him stick out, making fun... I guess he's trying to imply that Corey Graves is a hipster. But I mean, like, it's one thing to make really, really cliche, almost promo-like statements about how you're going to beat somebody up. But then when you start meticulously mentioning which places you may specifically be waiting for him, that's almost disturbing. I can't help but think if it wasn't February and Booker T was somebody else, that would be looked at a little bit more seriously. Here is, and I'm joking a little bit, and I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but here is what I do call sort of the bottom line moment of this little diatribe. And it's actually the host, again, whose name I don't know, and don't really care either. And the host says something along the lines of, yeah, we all know you'd break his neck like a pencil. And Booker T finds that really funny. And he lowers his voice, gets all serious, says, everybody needs to remember, he's sitting his ass on commentary for a reason. Now, we all know why Corey Graves is on commentary. Corey Graves sustained concussions in NXT, such to the point that the doctors wouldn't clear him to compete anymore. And that fucking sucks. It happened to Edge, it happened to Daniel Bryan, it almost happened to Austin, and then it did happen to Austin, and then it's happened to a bunch of other people that I'm going to mention in a second. But first of all, you're mocking the guy's health, which means that, I mean, that is not something you leave behind when you go home at the end of the day or at the end of your workday. That's something you take with you for the rest of your fucking life. Second of all, the guy's young as hell. He lost his in-ring career, you know, this thing that he's worked for so long, and he was just on the precipice of breaking out this badass heel, you know, he still uses the moniker the savior of misbehavior, but on commentary it's sort of thrown off a bit lighter. But if you see the gimmick that he had right as he was holding the tag team gold with Adrian Neville, back when he was Adrian Neville, that character would have skyrocketed. That character is the better version of what we have now in Baron Corbin, if you want my honest opinion. Corey Graves would have been great if he hadn't been injured, so that's pretty fucked up too. People talk about the bullying that JBL did to Mauro Ranallo, where we almost lost Mauro Ranallo as a commentator. You know, finds out that the guy's got, you know, suicidal ideations and mental health issues or whatever, bullies him until he basically leaves the SmackDown announce desk. And that's fucking terrible. But you got this guy here in Booker T now mocking this guy who lost his livelihood, got a second shot at being part of the WWE through Triple H and a bunch of other people, and this opportunity to do commentary, but he's never going to get in the ring again. And he's young as fuck. I think he's younger than me. That's fucking terrible. So this is where I'm going to make the bold statement that Booker T is worse than JBL. And I'm not exactly going to stick up for JBL either, am I? Now, also, throughout this entire thing, he's threatening to beat the shit out of Corey Graves because he's some big bad man. Now, let's see. First of all, think about the world we live in. Even if Corey Graves was in 100% health, there's no way he lays a hand on Booker T and doesn't eat shit from every single social commentator out there. Sorry, can't speak tonight apparently. Second of all, you're now such a big man and you're bragging about your ability to beat up a permanently injured man. What does that say about you, Booker T? Third of all, how distasteful are you? How distasteful are you to take cheap shots and threaten violence upon somebody who is very publicly not wrestling anymore because of concussion issues, when we are in the midst of sort of a slew of injuries right now, from Daniel Bryan, who's got, you know, concussion and seizure issues, to, you know, and not that all these don't have a positive spin on them as well. Daniel Bryan, concussion issues, seizure issues, etc., found a second life. It might not be his favorite thing, but he's found himself another role in wrestling. You got Tyson Kidd, who took that, the Muscle Buster from Samoa Joe at a house show, and he took it badly, suffered a permanent spinal injury. Now he's working backstage, moving on through the industry in another way. There's the rumors of Sheamus having the similar neck condition to guys like Edge and Stone Cold Steve Austin. We don't know how long he'll last, and what he'll do if he can't wrestle anymore. Hopefully he can stay connected to the industry somehow. Most recently, and most, you know, personally to me, because I'm a big fan of hers, was what happened to Paige. and her losing her neck after all the other bullshit that she went through. And she's still there with a smile on her face, with a game face on every night, managing the two girls that she just brought up from NXT. So here's all these people, here's this pattern that WWE is sort of creating of all these people that have been through these horrendous injuries, you know, life-threatening injuries, career-threatening injuries, career-ending injuries, that are still trying to make their way somewhat in the business, and you are trying to stomp your heel down on that because you got replaced by somebody that's not even in this conversation. That is fucking despicable, and I don't know what else to say other than that. Booker T, used to be a huge fan. I didn't really imagine that in the span of 1 week I would go from being a huge fan of the guy to thinking he's an absolute piece of shit. But that's where we're at. Anyways, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.
Freak like me.